All right, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We, again, had technical issues with the Zoom settings getting Robert on here, but we got him on, and man, am I excited for this Q&A. Robert, we had for sure the biggest response on this episode with you of any of the 6 we've done thus far. People are very, as understandably so, very interested in this conversation. And I personally as well, like I said in the episode, I think it's one of the most important and productive conversations we can be having right now in regards to what's happening in the world. But it's not really where people are looking, right? People are kind of looking at vaccine mandates and other stuff. And I think really this is where it all comes down to. So we're gonna get to the heart of it today, and maybe go a little bit deeper into some of the topics that we breezed over in our interview with you. Looks like a lot of the questions asked were about taxes, not surprising. And some other good ones as well. But I think maybe this is a good place to start to get us into the conversation. A lot of people are interested in the idea that we touched on in the episode of that there's no actual law in the Constitution or the articles that mandate taxation, that it's sort of something that has been done to us by elite banking families and whatnot. So people are asking, like, here's one question. Is income tax the only one we can legally unbind ourselves from? And if so, what does it mean to legally unbind yourself from federal income tax?
Well, yeah, to answer that question shortly, yes. I mean, there's no liability clause in the entire income tax 26, what would be under 26 United States Code, the income tax. There's no liability for any, whether you're a US citizen or an American citizen. And I say that because there's 2 different citizenships, but doesn't matter. There's no clause in there that makes anybody liable except the withholding agent, right? So the only thing it says is that income is taxable. It doesn't say who's liable to pay it unless you go into subtitle A, which talks about the withholding agent is liable to pay the income tax, right? So as far as other taxes, as long as those taxes are apportioned, which is what the Constitution says, to pay for the infrastructure of the country, then sure, those taxes are valid, right? Sales tax, no problem, right? That's valid. But it's the income tax. You cannot put anyone into voluntary slavery or servitude. So to say that, oh, you owe me money, but I'm not giving you anything. And by the way, you can't question me on that because the 14th Amendment says you can't question the debt. So wait a minute, you're taking money from me and telling me that you're providing services, but I don't know that the money's going to provide services because I can't question that. That's involuntary servitude, and the 13th Amendment doesn't allow that. So they couldn't involuntarily make us pay income tax. So they trumped this whole thing up. They created the 16th Amendment that made it look like, oh, you have to pay income tax. But you can go on YouTube and look up Tom Cryer, C-Y-R-E-R, explaining income tax. He's an attorney out of Louisiana that explains the whole thing. And he's got, what's his name? Joe, I forget Joe's last name, but he's got an IRS agent and other agents on there explaining the same thing. Like, they're saying, look, we worked for the IRS, and when we had to find in the law where this was, we couldn't find it, and we can't find it. Joe Bannister, that's his name. Okay.
Oh yeah, you mentioned him.
So I have 4 documents in my evidence file where the IRS was brought into an investigation. Okay. And the committee that was investigating them was asking them all these questions. And the IRS clearly says there is no law to pay the income tax. It is purely voluntary. That's in the federal records. I have the evidence that I could show people, right? So yeah, so it's
such a red pill, man.
It is. It's an illusion. The thing that binds you to paying the income tax is you actually filling out forms to pay the income tax.
Right.
You have to volunteer. So when you go to your employer is none the wiser, right? Because they're told that, oh, you have to make them sign this.
Everyone believes the illusion. Yeah.
Everyone believes the illusion. So the employers are scared to death because they don't want to get in any trouble. But if you actually show them, dude, if you withhold these taxes, you have to pay them. right? That should scare them even more. So I'm dealing with a House of Marcus Fellowship member now who's like, man, I'm being questioned on Monday about all this, and I'm helping him with the information, and he gets it, but he's like, the attorney for the company wants me to have a paper from another attorney. No. You tell that attorney, go to the IRS and have them rebut this. Forget the other. We don't need another attorney. You just go to the IRS. What are you guys scared of? Why won't you go to the IRS, right?
Wow.
So yeah, the income tax is a total sham. Other taxes, sales taxes, stuff, fine. But income tax, no go.
Yeah. Wow. So you're really saying, in a sense, you can't unbind yourself from taxes if you've bound yourself already. The trick is to not bind yourself.
Well, yeah, and you can unbind yourself. There is a way. Like what we do is, I do what's called a revocation of election, where I revoke my election to pay the income tax. Now, I don't even work for myself anymore, if you want to get technical, right?
There is no Robert Michael.
There's no self-employed. How do I employ myself? Right. That's all garbage. But the bottom line is, if you already do that, work for yourself or self-employed, you're one step ahead, because you don't have to deal with an employer with this. But anyway, you deal with the employer if you're employed. All it says in the IRS code, it literally says this, that as long as you give a certificate, which means an affidavit. An affidavit is a certificate. You're certifying something, right? I certify that the foregoing is true and correct, blah, blah, blah. That's a certificate. So as long as you give that affidavit to the employer, and it simply says, I will not incur any tax liability this year, and I did not incur any tax liability in the past. That's all it needs to say. And now the employer is not supposed to withhold taxes, because you don't plan on incurring any tax liability. So we do an affidavit in lieu of a W-2 or W-9. So in other words, when they hand us as a subcontractor, an employee, a W-2 or W-9, we go, we're accepted from that. Not exempt, we're accepted, meaning that applies to everyone else except us. Here's why. Bam, here's my affidavit. Here's my evidence. Here's my proof. So we give that to the employer. Then we turn around and we do what's called a revocation of election, which again is under the tax code, how to revoke your election to pay the income tax, right? Because you're considered an organization, you're considered a corporation. So this revocation of election is for organizations. So your quote unquote legal person is an organization. So you turn around and you send that to Washington, D.C., to the commissioner. They will send it to Ogden, Utah. They will stamp it and they will send it back to you, received. This is now your proof. You have your certified mail, you have your registered, your certified mail return receipt requested label, and your certified mail saying, nope, you guys have received it. After that, stop filling out the dang tax forms. Yes. That's it. You're done. Now, the revocation of election only works from this year forward. It doesn't work backwards, right?
Okay.
So if I would suggest, if I wouldn't even suggest, if I had taxes prior, I would pay them up, take care of all that, and then move forward.
Yeah.
Because I'm honorably saying, yes, I'm going to honor that contract that I created with you guys backwards and then going forward. And we work with an accountant too, who's freaking phenomenal. He gets people 3 years of their income tax back. So once they quit the tax club, he goes in and he gets 3 years of their full income tax back. So we have a community forum where people are starting to talk and share their experiences and what's going on. And there's a lot of information just going on in the forum right now.
I've been in there. It's great.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Thank you.
I'm a proud House of Marcus member, bro.
Yeah, nice. It's only going to get better because I literally just cleared my plate. I'm not doing any more consultations or one-on-one work. I will do group consultations if you have a group of people and they want to consult. That's because at least now I'm spending an hour with 10 people rather than one at a time.
Yeah,
I just don't have the time to work one-on-one. So the website, and now I can actually start focusing on putting more and more and the steps of what we're doing and how we're doing it all up on the website. And, so you will see some more lessons coming, more courses, all this stuff, more templates that I use and stuff like that. So
that's for anybody that's exciting, man. That's what people want. People want the resources, like show me what to study. I have a couple of questions here of like, should we just search for a lawyer that helps us do this, or should we study up and do it ourselves? And I think I know your answer, which is, I mean, sure, get a lawyer who's good and knows their stuff if you want, but yeah, you got to know it yourself ultimately.
Yeah, you can never get a lawyer. Actually, you can't. Number one, they're not trained in any of this. And number two, the minute you get in a lawyer, they're not a lawyer, they're an attorney. Remember, there's a difference.
Right.
Well, they're two. They're lawyers and attorneys. Lawyers is someone that's studied in the law, but just read your legal definitions, man. That's why in our lessons, I link everything to definitions so you can really understand what this is. A lawyer is someone learned in the law. An attorney is someone who attorns for someone. And the word attorn means to transfer your rights over to the landlord. So if you read Corpus Juris Secundum, which is the one of two law encyclopedias they use in this country, Corpus Juris Secundum, under the subject of attorney, the first thing it says is the attorney's first allegiance is to the state, second allegiance is to the court, and the third is to the client. So if you have an attorney, you're
in third place already.
You're in third place, and he can't do anything for you if it is not a benefit to the state, because his allegiance is to the state. So this, and my best friend is an attorney who is trying to get rid of his bar card eventually and stuff, because he knows this is all a sham. You can't have an attorney do any of this for you. You cannot. And it breaks their whole entire world down. So they don't want to lose their status, their esteem, that's all garbage. That's all sovereign citizen stuff. That's all they look at.
Right.
Because their so many years of practice and study goes right down the tubes.
Yep.
So you have to do it for yourself.
Yeah. Just like real spirituality, right? You can't rely on a guru or somebody else
or
to do
a
it for you.
priest or a pastor, right? It's not going to happen. It's got to be you.
Well, let me ask you this question, just because I'm interested. Is there any situation that you personally would see hiring a lawyer would be a good idea?
No.
This is comedy?
Nope.
That's amazing.
Never.
That's not something that would ever occur to 99% of people.
Absolutely. Well, because they think that the law is this big mysterious monster that they can't figure out. Right. No, what the big mysterious monster is the codes and statutes and the contracts and the commercial realm that you've been put in that you believe is the law. The law is simple. The law comes out of the Bible, period. The entire legal structure is built on the Bible and the Jewish banking law, completely all built on that. And if you read history, you'll see where they did it. Back in Rome, Constantine, who was a pagan worshiper, all of a sudden overnight became Christian. They had the Nicene Council where they removed all the books from the Bible that they didn't want anybody to read. They altered the ones that were in it, and they created this entire structure. Okay, from that point forward, Romans were then Christian, right? Which was about 100 or so years after this guy by the name of Christ, whatever his name was. It wasn't Jesus, because that name didn't exist at the time. Okay, it was Yeshua. So they created this whole thing, and then a few hundred years later, maybe like 200 years later, I forget the exact timeline, was it Justinian came in? Okay, Justinian wrote Corpus Juris Civilis, which means body of civil law, and we're still using it today. Okay, civil law is what is running, quote unquote, everything, and there's all these other law structures that plug into that, right? Military law, admiralty, if you will, and family law, and property law, and common law. It all plugs into their civil system.
Right, and they're trying to keep it as Byzantine as possible because they want to disorient us. And what you're teaching and what you talked about in the episode, they don't want any of that in the public narrative. Like if people try to publish articles on this or try to go mainstream with this news, like they will make sure it's taken off.
Yes,
very
few people have actually gotten through the door to their true freedom. And those that do are put under an NDA or a treaty. Okay. In other words, they get all their entire estate, and they have unlimited wealth at this point, but they cannot disclose or talk to anyone about it. And they're put under a treaty. And we know people that know people that have gotten to that point. Okay. So it's not something they want out there. And I have a feeling it's not something they're going to be able to contain much longer either, because we're all waking up. And that's why House of Marcus is behind the private wall, because we don't want to disgrace them. We don't want to, pull them out into the street and have everybody shoot them, right? Because not everybody in the system is aware of this.
Right.
There's only
Probably very few are.
Very few, right?
I mean, it's a lot of what you made a point of also, just to remind people in that episode, was, really becoming familiar with the fact that the way the legal books are written and the law is written is designed to obfuscate what's actually at stake.
Right.
So, I would really advise everyone to watch the episode again and watch what you were saying about that, because it was very, very articulate, and they're hiding what's at stake for you as a citizen by putting you into a false system.
Yes. And hiding what's at stake for them. So in other words, like, look, I know there's a bunch of we all know there's a bunch of corrupt idiots out there, but they don't even know this stuff, right? They're working off the paper dollar bills that the Federal Reserve owns, which is all garbage. You'll never own that. That's not real wealth. It has nothing to do with real wealth. Those corrupt idiots are working off of that, right? But the rest of the system administrators, they're ignorant. They don't know. Yeah. Right. So the Bible says respect them. Right. So we respect them. And one of the ways we do that is by letting them know we know that the state has secrets. If you go into evidence law or evidence rules, rather, for courts in any state, like I was looking at Kansas the other day because I got some issues with Kansas. So I'm like, oh, let me look at the rules of evidence. It says right in there, it talks about trade secrets and state secrets. Okay. We don't want to go into courtrooms and start pulling out the state secrets. These guys will do everything they can to hide it. However, if you seal the evidence and put it under a protective order and say, we need to look at this in chambers because this is state secrets that I do not want to put the state in a position of liability unless the state chooses to do that. Put this in evidence behind closed doors and let's talk business. That's how things get done outside of the courtroom. Right. Yeah. That's how you can negate court. I mean, because court's just a big show. It's just
exactly. It's theater.
It's all theater. That's why you practice it, right? You practice how to put on a show.
Exactly. One of the questions that Pat had in the chat was he wants to know, in Canada, are you familiar with how he can start to apply any of what we're talking about through the Canadian legal system?
So I'm working with Sovereign by Design. .com, and they're in Canada, and they're also working with a very good friend of mine who is in her late 60s, and she's an amazing, awesome wealth of knowledge and to trust and all this. She's been at this for 30 years. I mean, if anybody knows her stuff, it's her. So I haven't adapted everything over to the Canadian system yet, but I'm working with them, and they're out of Canada, so we're working together to put these things into play. And the biggest things are knowing that your name is not your name. You don't own it. It's an organization. And if you keep claiming to be that name, you keep claiming to be the slave that they own, the property.
That's a great way of saying it. Wow.
That's exactly what it is. And then the second thing is that name owns a bunch of stuff that you think you own, but you don't, because it's all in that name. And it owns unlimited wealth that you don't know you own because there's no claim to it. So the state doesn't know you own it either. So when you show up in court, even though the judge and stuff may not know this, basically what's happening is you're showing up as someone claiming to be someone else. So you're already lying. And then you're trying to administrate all this account and everything and the social security number and anything that belongs to this other person. So now you're acting against the law. Everything you sign with that name on it, you're breaking the law. Everything. Doesn't matter what you're doing because it's not yours. You don't have a claim on it. So getting into Canada and other countries, the points are the same. We make the claim. We claim the assets through property law. We set up a trust. We put the asset into the trust, the name, the organization, everything goes into the trust. And then we operate from a position of honor under contract. Basically the same model. We just have to figure out in like each country where those little laws are for people to reference. That's really it.
Yeah.
But the models, the skeleton's the same. It's just what are the little details that back it up, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to get into a little bit of the nuances that we didn't get to touch on in the episode when it comes to like how this would play out in a court setting. Because I know people want to know this stuff. You make so many interesting points about this, and especially the point of like how much they don't want this information to get out. Because I think about how quickly this could cascade if, let's say, the House of Marcus and other people and organizations or whatever, LLCs, who are teaching this stuff, it gets out enough to where, let's say, 20,000 people this year decide not to pay taxes. They're just not going to pay federal income tax because they feel confident enough that they could hold up in court against the IRS. And then, all their friends know that because they're going to talk about it to all their friends, right? And then, next year, 100,000 people are brave enough to do it. And then the next year, 1 million. And it's like within 3 to 5 years, like everyone knows someone who isn't paying taxes anymore. And it just could avalanche so quickly that what would happen if we got to a place where half the country is just being like, nope, we're not playing your game anymore. We're not paying your taxes anymore. And they're losing 50% of their yearly revenue from the citizenship. That'd be devastating to them, right?
Sure. Because you got to remember that the taxes only go to black ops stuff. Okay. The taxes they don't go to pay, it goes to pay the interest on the loans that they're using to keep up the infrastructure. It only pays the interest, I shouldn't even say it pays the interest. And
it goes to the banks, right?
Yeah, most of it goes to black ops. It does not go to the country. It goes to the interest holder, which is the bank and the people that own the bank, your Rothschilds, your Rockefellers, all those people, and back to the Queen through the IMF. It funnels down through Puerto Rico, through the Puerto Rican Treasury, and then goes back through the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, till it reaches the pockets of the Vatican, the Queen, the bankers. They all divvy it up, right? And we're just none the wiser. We think we're paying taxes because it's our patriotic duty.
It's our American duty.
Yeah. No, you're paying taxes.
Literally funding the cabal.
Yes, you're funding them. So if that many people did that, that would be a serious hurt on them. Another serious hurt would be is if everybody understood how to take back their estate, right, which is through the birth certificate, put that birth certificate into a trust and then give it back to the state on deposit and go, here you go. We're good, right? We're exempt from all claims because everything is prepaid. Nothing is not already paid for. Everything's prepaid. It had to be. When they removed the money from our systems, which is gold and silver, okay, and there's famous bankers that have even said the only money is gold. Everything else is garbage. Everything else is dead. There's
monopoly money. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing else has value. So when they removed all the gold and everything and our ability to use the gold to pay a debt, the Supreme Court here said, no, you can't do that. You have to give an exemption. You have to give them a way out. So everything's prepaid in that sense. Everything's already prepaid. All you have to do is discharge it. So when you have $5 bills of debt notes and you're giving it to someone else, I probably explained this last time, you're discharging that $5 fee that they charge you. You're not paying it, you're discharging it. Well, your birth certificate does the same thing. It discharges stuff. Okay. And that's huge. I mean, there's some major stuff that I won't get into as far as discharging and what we've seen done that will blow your mind on the amounts of money that were discharged. Okay. Yeah. So the certificate is your exemption. So it's a certificate of title to the asset that they're using to get loans from the bank and then charging you interest, taxes. They're charging you interest on the loans that they're getting. It's not your loan, it's their loan. They're using your asset, which the certificate represents, in order to put that on deposit so that they can get a loan. Okay. And they assess your value at, well, this guy's worth 20 million or whatever the case is at birth, over so many years, this guy will produce X amount of value.
Is that why they want to know how much money you make? Why you have to write your income on they want to know how much you're producing, right?
I don't know so much that that's what that's for. I can't say with certainty, but anything that you sign that's attached to that social security number is all logged into a master file and it creates value. And there's computations and everything that rack that value up in your private estate account. Okay. So when we changed an address from the vital, what we did is we took vital statistics and we wrote our all capital letter name in there as a business. And we said, we're changing the address. Okay. So we wrote the all capital letter name as the business and the former address that we were changing as the vital statistics address where that entity was created. So we put the vital statistics on there and then we put the new address of that organization as our address. And we signed it by signature, comma, CEO or executor. We didn't put a zip code because we don't live in a federal zone, and that's what a zip code says. Anyway, there's small details. When we got it back from the post office, it actually had the all capital letter name trust. We didn't write anything about a trust in there.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they're telling you that your asset is held in trust, and you left the asset when you were born. Your parents left the asset there, and that's being held at the vital statistics. And that asset, which is your name, your footprints, your parents' thumbprints, all of that approval and everything, your labor is the asset. The original title and everything is held in trust at the vital statistics. Until you go back and claim that, it's just sitting there in abeyance, meaning it's nobody owns it.
Yeah.
When you die, the state has a right to take that because nobody's claimed it. So now if there's any value attached to that trust, they can claim it all. So
it's
not only are they making billions on your taxes, but when you die,
it's literally just like an incredibly well-designed Ponzi scheme.
Yes, all commerce. Yes, and it's all commerce. Now, we look at it, we go, yeah, that's bullshit, man. It is a Ponzi scheme. But if you really look at it, the ingenuity of this is they said people aren't ready. They're not ready. Hold this in trust for them. Hold this in trust for them. When they show up, we have no choice but to give it back. But until they take that responsibility and learn how to act as a king and a queen in commerce, in honor with other kings and queens in other nations, they're not ready. So when everybody's going out and pumping their fists and fighting and trying to burn these guys at the stake, you're not ready. You're not ready. You're ready when you say, we understand your role. It doesn't apply to us. And we will defend ourselves if you try to injure us. That's different. But we're not going to burn you at the stake because we understand that we're the ones who are the creditors here and we're the kings and queens. And this is how we operate.
Yeah, we don't need to.
No. And people need to learn how to write, man. Start writing, write to these people. Like, there's no reason you can't send a letter to the office of the attorney general, to the governor's office, to the secretary of state, to the comptroller, to the, DMV. These people have a duty. And when you learn how to serve them legally with good writing, okay, you're going to start getting, you'd be surprised at what happens. You'd be surprised at the responses you get, if you get a response at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, so I'm interested in knowing more about, like, let's say we're able to do these processes you're talking about, claim your assets back with the birth certificate, you stop paying federal income tax. But what are some of the potential societal consequences one might run into being, I don't even know what you call it, not a sovereign citizen, but being decentralized from what's
being
that?
Free. Being free.
Being free. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Like, let's say, for example, that I stop paying federal income tax, but then I try to buy a house next year. And I think, as far as I know, most loan companies want 2 years of tax proof and stuff like that. Does that mean, like, oh, if I buy anything now, I have to pay for it all in cash because I can't take out loans anymore because I have no tax history? Like, what do you think about that?
So, yeah, that's a great question, because everybody asks, like, what does that look like on the other side?
Yes.
So I want to preface that by saying, first off, you never had anything. You never had any license. You never had any income. You never had anything, because it was all put in that other name, right? So that's first. And when we control that other organization, now there's some ways we can maneuver this, right? In terms of a house, and yes, that is a big one with loans and stuff. We actually have people that have said, yeah, we ran into that issue, and we told them that, everything's in trust. And they said, oh, well, just have just show us that the trust made a payment to you. And that's all they had to do, was go to their bank, have their trust.
Wow.
Assign it, write a check to them for X amount. And they went, okay, well, that's your income. Good. We can give you a loan on that. So that's one way. Another way we're breaking through is to be able to use instruments to make purchases, but we haven't gotten there just yet. Okay. There is a way that you can use these instruments to make the upfront purchase to begin with, because that house is already paid for. You just need to know how to discharge it and do the transaction. And no one's helping us do it. We got to figure it all out, right?
Right.
But yes, that is a good question, and it can be worked around. You just got to start thinking, man. Got to start studying commercial law. Uniform Commercial Code is banking law, period. In this country. In other countries, it's like the Uniform Personal Property Act. I think it's called PPSA, Personal Property Security Act, Bills of Exchange Acts, and things like that. Here, we use the Uniform Commercial Code, which is uniform in every state and federal. If you can start understanding that commercial code and start reading that, you will see that the keys to this entire thing of commerce It's all in there. It's just when we read this stuff, it's like, I can't understand it, man. Dude, sometimes I've read paragraphs and subsections of code 18 times or 800 times. Sometimes I get the dictionary, I pull the dictionary, I read the definitions in that particular code,
It almost has to be translated, right? Like you get a law dictionary and then you write out the definition in place of the word to get a better picture of what you're actually reading.
Yeah, I keep the law open and the law dictionary online, freedictionary.com. And I like freedictionary.com because they have a legal dictionary, a regular dictionary, a financial dictionary. And what I like about the legal dictionary is if there's a term in what's called Bouvier's law dictionary from 1856, they have the Bouvier definition in there as well. And I like that because that tells us what it originally looked like even back then and how it carries through today. So that's how I study it. As far as driver's licenses, things like that, people always say, well, what do I do with my driver's license? Some people say, get rid of it all. Okay, I have been, and I'm in it right now, on both sides of the coin, where we got rid of the driver's license, the tags and everything, and we put our own tags on it. We gave the guy, his own identification and everything. And then when the state came after him, took the car and everything, we went into court, showed them that we prior noticed them that this is what we were doing, and they failed to tell us it was against the law, and they couldn't prove that it was against the law, so they gave us everything back. Okay, so I've been on that side of the coin. Then I've been on the side of the coin where I have the license, and they've arrested me or somebody else or whatever, and we've gotten it all back again because it's not me that has the license. It's the organization. It's the all capital letter name. It's that thing. If we start looking at that thing, that they're talking to that thing and not us, we go, oh, well, that thing is what? It's property. Well, if it's property, then where am I in relation to that property?
Yeah.
That's why I do the documents I do, because now I have proof that this is who I am in relation to that property. So if the state tries to lay its grubby fingers on it, we got a problem. Because you don't have a right to do that without my approval as the the beneficiary or the trustee. If I put it into a trust and I'm a trustee of that trust, again, this is all about commerce. It's all about how we function. And that's why, like you said, we do need translators. We have them. I feel like I do a pretty good job at translating, and that's why we have House of MARKUS to help translate. So not everybody has to go down all these rabbit holes. It's like, look, we've got members that have done this, this, and that. And so we've seen the results repetitively, and this is the result. So we need to focus on this area, not all the way over here and all the way down there. And there's some people that love to go in court and fight. Good for you. You better know your stuff, man. You better know court rules, court procedure, one little timeline that you missed and they trumped you. I mean, to me, I'm like, I don't need to be. Court is for fighting. I'm not fighting anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have to fight anybody. I got a claim on it. There's no fight. I own it.
Yeah.
I own it. So that's really the key. But yes, functioning is another thing that we're going to be putting on the website. Operational procedures. This is how we operate in everyday life. So in other words, hey, I ran into this issue. Great. Thank you. We're going to take that. We're going to model it, and we're going to show everybody this is how we operate that. Now people can go right in the website. Go, oh, I've ran into that situation. How did you handle it? Oh, perfect. Oh, look, here's templates. Oh, whatever the case may be. So that's the whole idea about building the House of MARKUS community, is that we have these resources at our fingertips, that everybody can share and use. And
that's so important to have community, and really what it is unity. Where it's not just one or two people trying to figure this whole thing out, but if the more people that get interested in this, the better, because people have different gifts and their minds work different ways and see stuff, and we come together and really quickly we can start cracking these codes. And I mean, dude, there's people that spend years creating these mastermind schemes to rob banks and stuff.
Right.
Like those are the people that are going to find out about this and say, wait a minute, I have unlimited wealth in my name, in my trust that I have to figure out how to access. Game on, baby. And they're going to back engineer this whole thing and figure it out. And then,
they have. And there are
people
that have, man. There's some really intelligent people out there. I kind of stay away from the energies of everybody that wants to fight and take these people down and money. Like when people, oh, I've got all this wealth, and then that's their main motivator. That's never been my main motivator. but that's a great benefit of it, right? It's just
it'll get people to the dance. Yeah.
Right. It's just not my main motivator. My main motivator is freedom and building a free society of responsible people out of love and kindness and respect. So this is just an ancillary part of doing that for the most part.
Yeah. And to the point you made at the Health Freedom event in September, is that that's why COVID is such a blessing, right? The pandemic has been such a blessing because it's woken up people to these things that they just weren't interested in before. Mm-hmm. And now we have millions of people that are interested in what you just said of, no, I want freedom and building a free society, because now I see the importance of that, of the more I chain myself to these systems of power, the more they're going to abuse those powers, and they're going to abuse them to the furthest extent that they possibly can. And that's not a fun place to be. So that's why I say this is the best conversation we can be having in terms of how do we solve and correct these issues happening in our world and our society. Well, first we have to understand the structure, the foundation that the society has been built on. And it's like these people, like you said in the episode, are masterminds of planning and scheming, and they plan years in advance, decades, centuries in advance, to make this maze, these traps, like almost impossible to figure out until you get people that are really, really intelligent like they are, who can say, hey, now we see we're in a matrix of sorts. We're going to figure out how to escape this matrix. And then people start cracking the codes. And I feel like that's just now what's happening after, 200 plus years of us being oblivious to this maze.
Totally. That's exactly what's happening. And, through the COVID thing, people are seeing that the whole system is built for a few, not for the many.
Yes.
So they're seeing that too. And so you can't really fix a system that's built for the few and is functioning 100% in that vein and is built for that reason. So you have to build a new system.
Yes.
And we can build new systems outside of theirs. They don't have any jurisdiction over that. That's our creation. They only have jurisdiction over what they created, right? Just like you have jurisdiction over whatever thing that you create, right? Your podcast or your podcast, you created those. Nobody else has jurisdiction over that. They're mine, right? Or the group of us that got together to do them. It's no different. It's the same thing. Yeah. So we just build new systems.
Are you familiar with the Free State Project in New Hampshire?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah. I'm not intimately familiar, but I have heard of it.
I'm not super familiar with it either, but from what I've heard about it on a podcast, essentially a bunch of libertarians, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, on a forum board, I think, were like, hey, let's sort of co-opt one state together and we'll make it like a libertarian paradise. And they had 10,000 of them moved there. And then over the years, just invited more people from that movement to live there and built their numbers, started changing the school systems, the law systems, all kinds of stuff, to where now it really has become in New Hampshire a libertarian paradise. They have the lowest unemployment, lowest homelessness, highest GDP of any state. They're crushing it in every statistical category, because they just kind of figured out the way the game's played and started playing it to their advantage. And I think there's only 1.5 million people in the state, but there's been lots of rumors since the pandemic's gone on that New Hampshire is going to secede. They've been talking about it, because what would the government be able to do if 1.5 million people were like, hey, we're done playing your game. Bye-bye.
Right. Well,
throw them in jail. Where, with what prison system can you know what I mean?
Truth be told, New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, New Hampshire doesn't even exist anyway. So all they're doing is inhabiting the new existence, or the original existence of New Hampshire, because in 1860, when the South walked out, that all ended. So that's why if you look at your states and it says state of, that's of the state. That's created
another organization.
Yeah, totally created. And you look at their Dun and Bradstreet, and it says that they've been in business since their Constitution was written. They had to do that after the Civil War, like I was explaining in the last episode, because the union's been broken. There is no union of states. It's all a sham. They broke that in 1860.
That's a state where there's a big culture of people who actually talk about the things that Robert talks about. Yeah. It's for some reason, I think both Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, that area, they're becoming more and more aware, especially in New Hampshire, because people in Vermont, people who live there are sort of I've had enough of these people that report the government, and I've been in some places like small towns in those areas, and people like, because I'm from California, like Aaron is, and I'll say I'm from California, and I've just learned my lesson. Like,
so sorry. Yeah.
Like, it's just like I'm Jerry Clooney in the Larry Holmes fight again. You know what I mean? Why don't you just hit me every place in the head that you can for the next 15 minutes, and then when they come over and they resuscitate me, we'll start talking. You know, but like literally, they know everything about what Robert is talking about to a certain degree, because Robert's really done the deep dive on more of the nuance of what are the underpinnings and how do you free yourself from the system. But they'll come up to you and they will say to you, like, do you realize you're living in a maritime system? Like, you don't really, the election really doesn't matter. You get that, right? Right, kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two-party system is two heads on the same snake, and it's a privately owned organization. Do you get that, right?
You get that? Yeah, it's hilarious stuff. But it's really a great point that Robert's making, because if one state, if we can, your question, Aaron, because if one area could develop a culture that was illuminating this stuff,
yes,
that is really all it takes.
And then everyone else starts paying attention and going, hey, what are they doing over there? That's pretty rad.
Right. And what people have to realize is, just like now they have to give up their choice of where they're going to grocery shop or what they're going to do, right? They're also going to be faced or give up the notion that things are ever going to be normal, right? It's that spiritual letting go. This is so in alignment with your spirituality that if you're not in alignment, it's not going to go for you, right? The same thing with letting go of believing that you can change the system by voting or being a part of it, but you can't.
It's also part of the illusion.
Right, because voters have to be U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens are federal citizens. They're owned by the United States. They're not Americans. That's a different citizenship. And if you're a shareholder in the organization as a voter, you only have certain benefits. You don't have any rights. So actually registering the vote is one of the first things that we do, is terminate that registration, because that is tying you into being a slave. Only slaves can vote, no one else. If you went in and you said, well, I'm not a U.S. citizen, I'm a state citizen, and I can't fill this form out because it says I must be a U.S. citizen to vote, then you can't vote. But only U.S. citizens are slaves, not American citizens in this country.
It's incredible. It's an incredibly well-built illusion.
Totally.
As you're saying this, I've listened to so many of your videos and heard you talk about this so much, and it's like finally starting to condense and make sense. So let me lay this out and have you tell me if this is accurate. My followers will appreciate this analogy. And I did make this analogy in our episode a little bit, that really what they do, it's exactly like the way the ego is built, in that they just they've just learned, if we can just make everything into a corporation, the states are a corporation, every person's a corporation, even the United States is a corporation, then we make this fictitious entity that doesn't actually exist, doesn't have any ability to do anything, to work, to go anywhere, doesn't exist, right? It's an idea we put forward. We call it corporation. And we just say, okay, it exists. And then if you buy into that fictitious entity that they tell you are, then they can start making you pay taxes and abide by their systems and stuff, because you believe their illusion and you're agreeing with their illusion. Just like we agree, I am my ego, I am the separate self. And spiritual awakening is realizing, oh, that voice in the head's not me. It doesn't even exist. And then you're free. So really, we're trying to do the same thing almost legally, right? Is to realize they've just made a fictitious self entity out of everything. And you have to stop identifying with that fake self that they say you are, the corporation.
Yep. That is a exact scenario. That is perfect. An excellent way of explaining that. Because if you think about, the Bible teaches about the devil, and on the devil is the ego.
Right.
So it's, and what they did was they took the devil and they put it out there in the world by creating these fictitious ego things, right? So yes, that's exactly what's going on. And so if you look up the definition of juristic person or juridic person, it can be natural or it can be artificial. And the reason it has to be a juridic person is so they can drag it into the law system. In other words, a man and woman cannot be brought into the law system. It can't be. Wow. Only a juridic person. So when they create this person for you, just like you said, they're creating an alter ego, they're creating a fiction, they're giving you a conduit to speak to them through, because a man and woman can't speak to them because they're dead, right? Corp, C-O-R-P, corporation, it's dead, it's corpse. So, and that's where corp comes from when you look at Latin and you look at the origins and the etymology.
Corpus.
Yes. So they are essentially all fiction. Like you said, you just have to come to the realization that, wait a minute, that doesn't have any more control over me than I give it by me playing in the game.
Yes.
And all we're trying to do is say, okay, we're going to rise above that, and we're going to take back what you guys took from us in that corporate scheme, and we're going to put you at bay to say, no, we are honorable and we don't need to fight with you, and you guys just hold off on your jurisdiction because we're outside of that. That's all we're really doing.
Yeah, we come in peace.
We're
not here to fight you or something.
Yep. Yeah. We're peaceful. We're not here to fight. And what's beautiful about all these rallies and stuff all over is people are saying that. And it, like, they're not fighting back when the police show up with their riot gear. I mean, you see some here and there, but nowhere near what you would think it would be. You know, people are like, we're here in peace, man. We're just trying to say we have, you know, we deserve freedom, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, you know,
So before we close then, because I wanted to get into a little more of the nuances of how you would do this in a court setting. Based on what we've said so far, of it's really just you keep identifying and signing yourself away as this fictitious self, this ego self that they make. Let's say I stopped paying federal taxes and did all that stuff, and then 10 years later, the IRS is like, hey, we caught this guy. He's been not paying taxes for 10 years. Let's go take him to court and sue the pants off him. So I go to court and they're like, you know, the IRS prosecutors like, we have 10 years of no federal income tax for you, and we're going to charge you with this amount of money. And it has your name in all caps and the corporation and stuff. Are you saying that essentially, and I know it's more complex than this, but you're really just there to say, I don't know who that is. I am a man named lowercase Aaron Abke, or however you spell it normally. And, you know, that's not my business. Like, I didn't create that corporation, and you just keep standing on your real identity as a man. And just, where's the law that says I have to pay this as a man? You know, you haven't signed any tax forms that they can get you on. You've done your due diligence. Is that essentially as simple as it is?
Not quite, because then they'll call you sovereign citizen and they'll slap you with all the fines that they're in prison.
Nice.
Because the reason being is you've already gone too far. I tell people all the time, if you're in court, you already went too far. Meaning, they're offering you a contract. So because they cannot apply anything unless you agree. You have to agree for them to apply it. So I tell people 99% of your defense is in your first contact. Okay. So let's wind back in your scenario. You said, okay, well, after 10 years and they came to me, that's when you go, not really sure who you are. Please identify who you are. Here's your Dun & Bradstreet report. Are you a municipal corporation, or are you a government agency? Do you have an oath of office? I need these cleared up because that's an ambiguity, and a latent ambiguity means on its face, an intelligent person thinks one thing, but there's extrinsic evidence on the background that could possibly make it another. So in order for me to process your claim, which I will gladly do, because I'm not going to argue with you that this is an actual claim, I'm just going to need you to clear these ambiguities for me. So you got so many days to clear this. Oh, by the way, if you don't clear these and you continue to proceed against me without having a nexus, a contract or anything, you hold yourself to these liabilities and you agree to the following. Bam, 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 bam. I guarantee you send somebody something like that, doesn't matter who it is, they're going to be like, oh, well, no more business here, because you just blew apart their entire claim against you. What they want you to do is get upset and get scared and start talking to them. Well, I don't know this. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, now you agree. All right, let's get into this. You just agreed, right? Because I don't know this, because I'm a man. Well, wait a minute. No. Let's fight this out. Instead of saying, I agree to everything you say, provided you'll clear up these ambiguities, because everything looks to be straightforward, but actually there's so much evidence
it's all
over
clouded.
Here. Yeah. So look up the legal definition of ambiguity, or ambiguous, and you'll see latent ambiguity and patent ambiguity. And patent ambiguity is a little different. What they're doing is latent ambiguity. So we go into latent ambiguity and so your defense in any court or legal matter is right from that first contact. What is exactly happening, right? What's going on there? So I'll give you an example of my own. Back in Kansas this year, I got a speeding ticket, and we were like, well, we're going to challenge this, right? What we're going to do is let the officer come up with his presumption of law. And I'm going to speak to him as if there's a latent ambiguity that he has no clue about, which you're coming at me as an officer of the law saying I broke the law and committed a crime. And I'm responding to you saying, well, I don't understand that because that's ambiguous, because I know there's an account and everything. And I see you trying to attach some charges to an account. So I'm not giving you any information because I'm protecting the account on behalf of the state. You're coming at me saying you're trying to gain charges on behalf of the state. This guy's got no clue, right?
Because they can only charge your corporation.
Yeah. So he's got no clue. And I'm just saying, look, sir, I can't give you any information without counsel. That's all I can tell you. I know you don't know the rest of this, but I can't give you any information without counsel because you got me on the side of the road. I can't leave. I'm not under arrest, but yet I'm not free to go. So you're investigating me. And in an investigation, I have a right to counsel before I say a word. I don't need you to read me Miranda rights for me to assert them. So I'm telling him, I'm asserting my right, saying, no, we don't have. Do you have a license? Yeah, I got one right here. I held it up to the window and I put it right down because I'm protecting. That's an account. You can't have that account information. I don't know who you are. Yeah. You're a municipal corporation. I'm not sure if you're a government agent, a municipal. I don't know who you are. Just because you got a badge with a name on it, that doesn't tell me anything. Yeah. Right. They don't understand this. So eventually it escalates. 5 cops come out. They put tack strips under the car and everything, right? They're making this big scene.
Make a big deal. Yeah.
And I held them up for 3 hours on that where they couldn't move. They tried to break the window. I'm like, don't go. I'm telling you, don't go there. So they finally had enough. And then, the superior came and he smashed the window, which was my girlfriend's, wasn't even mine. So now they've damaged someone else's property. Wow. They have no proof or no, suspicion of a crime. What crime? What are you talking about? So anyway, this all escalated. I put myself in, I could have done that a lot easier. Okay. But I wanted to go there. I wanted to get in.
You're learning. Yeah.
Well, not only I'm learning and I'm experimenting, right? Because now I'm carving a path on what we need to do in certain situations and proving that their officers and judges and everybody are illiterate and they're ignorant. They don't understand law. They only stand process and procedure. And this is a major problem. Your officers are out there injuring people under process and procedure, but they don't understand anything about law. Because when I talk to them about law, they have no clue. So this is a problem, right? So that's what I wanted to do, was create this scenario and then go into court, which I did. And I've got all this stuff against them. So I'm in a court situation because I put myself there. And that has yet to unfold in April, which is going to be really interesting how that goes down.
No, I can't wait.
Because I'm bringing someone very knowledgeable in court process and procedure into the courtroom and saying, that's my power of attorney and he will speak for me. Period. I'm not saying a word. That's my power of attorney. Yeah, it doesn't matter who he is. It doesn't have to be a licensed attorney or anything. Power of attorney.
Wow.
And so we're really experimenting with a lot of this, and it's over a stupid traffic ticket. They're going to be hating life because they've made so many mistakes along the way that I've just got documented. Actually, I haven't even written them down because they're all right here just by what happened. We recorded everything. Wow. They had no cams on. We record, so they have no footage. We've got everything. Right? They got nothing. And they're going to try to fight me on this, traffic violation. And then the prosecutor, he wrote up his complaint completely wrong. Like, I showed my attorney buddy, he's like, oh my God, dude, this is horrible. I'm like, yeah, the prosecutor swore to the facts. How do you do that when you weren't even there? And a prosecutor, you're either an attorney or a witness. You can't be both. So if this goes down, hey, I need to put him on this. Well, he can't be on the stand. He's the prosecutor. Well, it says right here in his document that he witnessed all this. So I need to put him on the stand. Wow. They're going to flip out, man, because they made so many mistakes. They don't even know it. So my rules of thumb are I don't sign anything. And if I do, I use the words without prejudice only. And, I say, or when I sign things, I sign it by, because I'm signing as an agent for that corporation with my name. So I sign it by, like, hey, by the manager, by the general executor. Okay, I'm signing on behalf without prejudice. And if someone forces you into signing, you'll want to use the initials VC, which is Victor Chris, right? VC before that's a Latin abbreviation for under duress. Okay, so when you sign these bonds,
I see.
Yeah, when I went in to sign this bond, I made sure, I'm not signing this. I'm without prejudice VC because I'm blocking them from being able to turn that instrument into more financial stuff. okay, which they did anyway. And if I did a forensic accounting on all the bonds and stuff that they're using, I could see that all belongs to me and you guys aren't paying capital gains tax. So how are you investing in these bonds and everything and not paying capital gains tax? I think the court has a problem.
Oh, man. Okay, so let me now summarize what you just said there again, and you can tell me if I'm accurate. The reason that you said 99% of your defense is in your first response to them. So let's say IRS audits me, say, hey, we haven't had tax records from you for 10 years. Show us your tax records that you've paid, or we're taking you to court. And then I say, I don't know who you are. Please tell me who you are, make them write it out and spell it out for you, clear up the ambiguities, because then you're making them state who they are. And actually all the power is in our hands if we have the knowledge. And so once they state, like they're the debtor, not me, if they state I'm this corporation, whatever, essentially they're giving you all the ammunition you need to come back and say, oh, well, then as the trustee, you have to do this for me, or whatever the language is. Yes. So you want to get them to put it on paper exactly who they are, because then if you know how that works in court, it's kind of an easy battle at that point.
Yeah, because think about everything you just said, flip that around. And isn't that exactly what they do to us?
That's exactly what they do to us. Yes.
But because we're under the assumption that we have to answer these people and give them information. No, we don't have to answer anything. The only thing we have to do is accept under condition, right? Under certain conditions that you clear all this up, I'll accept it.
Yes.
But I don't have to give you any information. The information that you have to give me is mandatory because you're a public agency. I don't have to give you anything.
Wow.
And people freak out because they think as soon as they get a debt collection letter, as soon as they get this, that they have to give information. No. You request information from them.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said it perfectly. Now you're building the record to show that they don't have any dog in the fight. They don't have anything but assumption and presumption.
And that's why I've heard you say too, right? That the one, whenever you get into legal conversations like this or whatever, the one who's asking the most questions is the one who's going to be winning. The one who's giving answers is losing, right? Because essentially, right? Because if you're giving answers, you're probably stating, I am this corporation, you say I am, and I'm, but if they're doing it, you get them to do it, then they're basically showing that we're an entity that has less rights and power than you do. And if you know that, then we can't get you.
Right, exactly. So answer questions with questions. That way you're answering, but you're also getting them to clarify. And when I stumbled across, and this was just recently that I stumbled across the ambiguity thing, and I was like, oh, no wonder why, a lot of this stuff has been so powerful that I've been doing in the past. I didn't realize how simple ambiguity, but yet powerful it is when you're talking about dealing with someone with a claim. Like if you have a claim and it's ambiguous and I can't understand the claim, there's no court going to hold that up till you clarify that claim. Now in court procedure, let's say somebody filed a lawsuit against you and your attorney, if you had one, brought something like that up. In court procedure, that would be, please, you would motion for a more definite statement, right? So you'd motion to court to compel the other party to clarify everything, but you don't even need to do that. Once you do it all before court, it's already done. You're doing all the work for the judge. And every court thing that I've helped people with has always been out of court. We've never, when they have to go to court, everything's already done and they usually just breeze right through it because all the paperwork was served in the backside. Everything was done privately. Everybody's aware that, oh shit, we're caught here. What do we do? And when you go to court, it's like, hey, let's just settle this up and get you out the door. Great. Thank you. Have a nice day. So we don't go in there and file motions and I'll start arguing and complaints and no, we don't need to do that. We just want to get out of here,
Yeah, you don't want to fight force with force.
Right.
Just feeds the system.
Totally.
Yeah.
The war machine and the whole thing functions on war. So the more you war, the more power you give it.
That's the negative polarity, essentially. Yep. Control, manipulation, and fighting and force. If you're not playing that game, they actually can't do anything to you.
Yeah, it's like an alcoholic that continues to fight himself, right, with the alcohol.
Right.
Instead of just saying, God damn it, I'm going to do this and I'm going to commit to it and I'm going to go to AA and I'm going to stop fighting myself, keep fighting yourself. You keep perpetuating that addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. One last question I saw here that's really good. You can just breeze over this if you want, but Katrina says, I love the connection made with ego and fake corporation. So amazing. My question is, what about international travel and passports? while we are freeing ourselves of this game. So another one of those logistical, how do you deal with this once you're free?
Yeah. So there are people that really have this American national, they call it, passport. It's the same passport, but it's the way that you fill out the passport application that makes it powerful, right? Because you can't fill it out. Your parents, the way you fill it out is there's several ways, but you don't select U.S. citizens for your parents. They aren't U.S. citizens, that type of thing. The way you sign it is important. You might have to add some documentary evidence to it, but there is a way to get a passport that gives you a little bit more protection than just the regular passport. The problem is all these corporate countries are all in cahoots together under the corporate governments that they've created under the UN. So in terms of like vaccines and mandates and all, if they start doing that, there's only going to be one way out of that. And that's a white passport, which is very seldom heard of, and only diplomats carry it. It's a diplomatic passport and it's white. And nobody that I've ever seen has that passport unless they're a diplomat. Once you have a diplomatic passport, that says in your country and other countries, you can't hold me to any laws unless I hurt somebody. That's it. That's the only thing that you can hold me to your laws for. Other than that, I'm free to do what I want. That I've never seen accomplished. That's where we're going or trying to go at some point. But we have to take care of all this stuff first, because you'll never get through that door without showing them that you've taken care of all the responsibilities of the debt, the debtor, all that kind of crap,
Yeah, it is a lot to become familiar with and learn about. So if you're going to go down this road, you want to be responsible. You want to do your due diligence, do your studying, make sure you know your stuff. And if you're going to be studying that, you probably want to be a member of House of MARKUS, because they got great resources there available and are working on a whole other, like Robert said, just a whole nother library of content and resources as well. So I'm a really happy and proud member of House of MARKUS, and I've done a lot of my own learning there. As we close, can you just once again give people the information on how to get involved with that? Maybe your YouTube channel or anything else you want to give?
Yeah, sure. So it's House of MARKUS, MARKUS.org. not .com. And basically people go there. There's a $33 a month donation membership. That's helping us help you. So that's what it's there for. Some of our document templates are other donations, but not every document template we put out is going to be a donation, right? It just depends. It depends on the value of it, of course, and what you're helping us do. And I always like to lay this out, because people think you're making millions of dollars and you're pocketing it all. Everything I do goes back into the organization. That's what a nonprofit does. A nonprofit takes the money and puts it back into the organization constantly, so nobody is technically benefiting. It doesn't mean I can't get paid or that my living expenses aren't paid for, but you come in, it's a community. You have a community forum. We have document templates. We have a library we're building that's got a bunch of stuff you can study in it already. Lessons and stuff. None of that stuff is extra donation. It's all there. So we're building the community. And I want to also say that if you're in touch with the spiritual community and you really have looked at like what a lot of people are seeing coming down the road from their consciousness and their ability to connect intuitively, this is going to take a few years. Okay. We're going to go through, 5 to 10 years. So don't beat yourself up. It's okay. Ask for protection, protect yourself, surround yourself with light, and protect yourself, and just keep moving forward. And we will help you as much as we can. That's what we're there for. We have a support system. You can send tickets in, we'll respond, send your questions in, things like that. And then, there's the YouTube, which only has a handful of videos on it. And I don't want to put a bunch more stuff up there, to be honest with you. It used to be Private Estate, or it used to be REM Private Management. Now I changed the name to House of MARKUS again. So you can find that on YouTube if you search House of MARKUS. Yeah. And that's about it, man. Just keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on, man. And you do have some pretty interesting videos though on your YouTube channel.
Awesome.
It's a good place for people to start, but I think what House of MARKUS does really well is not just providing the resources to learn more, but also a community of people who are on this path, learning this stuff that for me, like in whether it's terrain theory or spirituality or whatever I've been into lately, having a community of people to just be in conversation with is one of the fastest ways to learn and to feel empowered and supported, that like, oh, this is so possible. We can do this. We got this.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen in these communities over the years is no support. You go to somebody's website, they're a law guru, they throw up all this stuff and you can't figure anything out. So me being a customer service based individual, even from when I was a kid, I was a carpenter and had a contracting business. Customer service was big. It was like first and foremost. So it's ingrained in me to make sure that I'm providing support for whoever's coming in. And we obviously have people helping us with that support. So yes, House of Marcus also provides as much support as we possibly can. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to rescue you from a legal matter.
Right. Yes.
We're not saviors. We can't do that, but we can help educate you so you can do it for yourself, because that's really the point.
Teach a man to fish. Don't give a man a fish.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Well, man, Robert, thanks again so much for joining us. This is such a treat to get 2 conversations with you and just gain from all your wisdom and learning, and just the fact that you really are somebody who embodies what you preach and practice. So again, really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on again with us.
Yeah, thank the both of you. Justin, thank you. Aaron, thank you as well. And Brandon, when I see him, I'll thank him too. Yeah. But I love you guys, man. I love what you're doing. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you're spreading the message, which is the gospel, by the way, because gospel is truth. That's all it is. So
the good news,
the truth.
right?
Yep. So thank you, man.